Day continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The arrival of 15,000 Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccines has been pushed back to April 28. In a Viber conversation, the National Task Force Against COVID-19 confirmed the delay, citing some logistical issues. Another 480,000 Sputnik V doses are set to arrive on April 29, but there's no information yet whether this will be moved as well due to the adjusted arrival of the first batch. The Health Department says Sputnik V vaccines will not be available to all LGUs due to the difficulty in storage and distribution. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere explained that the Russian-made shot requires a dark storage and a temperature not over negative 18 degrees Celsius.
Ito pong ganitong klaseng storage ay hindi po natin makikita sa lahat ng ating mga lugar sa Pilipinas. Kaya pagdating po ng Sputnik V, meron lang po tayo mga assigned local governments that will receive because they have the capability to store this kind of vaccines. So ito po ang difference niya kasi yung CoronaVac or yung Sinovac at AstraZeneca, you can store them in the regular na mga storage facilities natin kasi 2 to 8 degrees lang po ang kailangan doon. Pero itong Sputnik V, meron pong specific handling.
We've heard famous vaccine brands like Pfizer and Moderna being called mRNA vaccines by health officials. Some experts say this type of vaccine is relatively new and is fairly different from traditional jabs. But how exactly do messenger RNA vaccines work, and are they safe for use? Bloomberg senior health reporter Robert Langreth gives us the answers and debunks disinformation in this report.
Messenger RNA vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna have been shown to be highly effective in preventing COVID-19. But this technology is very new, and that's made them extremely vulnerable to disinformation campaigns. These include a false worry or a false belief that the mRNA vaccines could somehow alter your DNA. So, are mRNA vaccines actually risky? These are the facts that you need to know. So what are mRNA vaccines, and how do they differ from traditional vaccines? Instead of introducing into the body a weakened version of a virus or a piece of a virus, they temporarily turn the body's cells into tiny vaccine-making factories. So how do they do this? Well, what they use is synthesized versions of something called messenger RNA. Now, that's a molecule that normally carries genetic coding from our DNA in the nucleus to the body's protein-making machinery. But what happens here with the vaccines, mRNA, once introduced in the body, instructs the body to make the spike protein, which is a key protein that the SARS-CoV-2 virus uses to enter cells. And now this, in turn, stimulates the body to make long-lasting antibodies to the coronavirus. Messenger RNA vaccines are quicker to develop than traditional ones because production doesn't require growing live viruses or viral proteins inside live cells. Also, messenger RNA's modular nature makes designing vaccines relatively straightforward. In the case of Moderna's vaccine, it took only a few days for researchers to come up with the messenger RNA sequence that is used in the actual vaccine. So what type of disinformation is actually being spread about mRNA vaccines? Well, one thing that that's out there a lot is that steps were somehow skipped in developing or authorizing the vaccines. Now, it's true that these vaccines reached the market in absolutely record time, but that's actually not because any testing steps were skipped. Basically, companies were able to speed up the process by performing some testing steps in parallel. And in addition, especially in the case of Moderna's vaccine, the U.S. government took big financial risks by paying to gear up manufacturing well before the results were in. And in fact, even with the emergency use authorization of these vaccines, the FDA actually established strict guidelines in advance for what they'd be required to get emergency approval. And the vaccines went through full phase 3 trials with 30,000 patients, at least that many or more, and they were required to show more than 50% efficacy in preventing symptomatic disease, and the two messenger RNA vaccines easily outperformed that standard. And they were also required to show 2 months of safety follow-up from their phase 3 trials.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Vice President Leni Robredo slams government officials who are red tagging and questioning the intentions of community pantry organizers. In her weekly radio show, Robredo described as irresponsible those officials who are undermining the efforts of civilians who want to help their fellow Filipinos during this health crisis. The vice president hopes that red tagging or profiling activities of the country's anti-insurgency task force will not discourage organizers from continuing the initiative.
Napaka-misplaced, napaka-irresponsible yung ginagawa ng ibang mga opisyal ng pamahalaan. Sa panahon ng gaya nito, yan yung iniisip nila.
Apo.
So sana hindi ma-discourage. Sana hindi ma-discourage yung mga nagtayo ng community pantries.
In the same show, Robredo also urged local government officials to not only encourage the establishment of more community pantries, but to also protect its organizers from harassment. Some mayors have defended community pantries in their area, noting that government permits are not needed for civilians to help their local communities.
Nakita natin to dito sa Quezon City. Kay Mayor Joy, nakita natin si Mayor Vico, naglabas ng mga statements na hindi lang nahahayaan sila pero ipoprotect sila. Tingin ko dapat ginagawa to ng LGU para nadi-discourage yung iba naman yung kaisipan na makabuelong iharas o takutin o harangin yung mga kagaya ni Patreng at iba pang nag-put up ng mga community pantries.
Now here are other stories we're keeping our eyes on. National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon has imposed a gag order on NTF-ELCAC spokesperson Antonio Parlade and Lorraine Badoy following their supposed red tagging against community pantry organizers. Parlade and Badoy were told to desist from issuing further statements on community pantries. The Customs Bureau is boosting its cargo monitoring through the rollout of electronic tracking of containerized cargo, or E-Track. Through the E-Track, the cargo transport report for the period of January to April shows a total of over 63,000 completed trips. Now, the report on completed trips involves different ports around the country where the tracking system is being fully implemented. And Pagasa says Bising has affected over 401,000 individuals while leaving 272 million pesos in damages. Disaster response officials said affected individuals are from Cagayan, Bicol, Eastern Visayas, and Caraga regions. 4 people were also reported to have died while 13 were injured. Now, the cost of damage from Bising stood over at 260 million on agriculture and around 10 million on infrastructure. Now, for more updates, visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. Mask on, wash hands and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.